show. So if you need to go to the bathroom, you're going to have to hold it in. And no photo, no video, please. And silence your phones. And thank you. Enjoy the show.
Thanks, Paul. Thank you. So much for coming. And I'd especially like to thank the premiers for agreeing to come and engage in conversation with me tonight. It takes real courage to participate in the kind of reflexivity that I have proposed for this evening's event, and so I salute you premiers for being brave enough to show up. Bravo! Before we begin, I should take a moment to explain why Hey, ladies and gentlemen. Williams? What the hell does reflexivity mean? Dunderdale? And Fury. I have admired many of you. I have even loved some of you and looked to you for guidance on how to understand the world at times, which is not really healthy. And so my, let's just call him my psychopolitical advisor, or my PPA. He suggested that might be what's called an unhealthy, anxious attachment style. And so he suggested that I call you all together tonight, and he said I should leave. So I really hope this will be a clarifying conversation for all of us, and that you will all trust me enough to come with me now as we undertake this journey. With a bit of luck, I will emerge intact. Before I begin, though, I think I should call upon my PPA, my psychopolitical advisor, to illuminate and guide me. Yeah. Dear Father Clyde, who dwelt in Stephenville Crossing, hallowed be thy name. Thy liberal will be done, thy federal funding come. Thy liberal will be done in Newfoundland and Labrador as it is in Quebec. Give us this day our balanced budget, and forgive us for the Clyde Lie campaign of '91, as we will attempt to forgive you for several austerity budgets thereafter. And lead us not into temptation of voting PC again. But deliver us from the ego of the political class and the disaster of Muskrat Falls, forever and ever. Amen. Bless you, my child. But please call me the Honorable. Now, are you clear on what you must accomplish here this evening? An honest reckoning of the pathological political patterns that have plundered our resources with megalomaniacal projects that benefit a select few and not the many? That's all, Father Clyde. For what purpose, exactly? For the purpose of sharing a common understanding of our past, so that we can choose a better way forward. Oh my God. Maybe this is a bad idea. Maybe this is all beyond me. Oh, if only I had your skill in the court, Father Clyde. Not Father, the Honorable. Yes, I'm sorry. If only I had your skill in the court, FC, I could get them to crack open. Oh, you can get this crowd to crack open. I have faith that you can do it. Okay, thanks for the vote of confidence, SC. How should I begin? How do you think you should proceed? Well, perhaps I should start by getting the premiers to agree on the problem. That sounds like a prudent approach. Okay, great. Thanks, FC. Wish me luck. I don't believe in luck, only in preparation. That's cute. So, to begin, premiers, I think it's really important that we start by agreeing we have a problem. What? What problem? When it comes to our politics and our industrial development, we have repeated certain negative patterns. Well, I delivered the Lower Church Oak. There was nothing negative about that. Muskrat Falls? Are you living in an alternate universe? Did they put something in the water at Galway? You tied an albatross around our necks with your ego trip, Premier Williams.
one that nearly strangled my government's ability to deliver the transformational services Newfoundlanders and Labradorians expect.
Well, I can't be held responsible for what happened after I left office. I set up the play. You set it up all right, didn't you? You just had to lob the puck in the net. You set me up, and I'll never live it down.
Premiers, please, let's just take a breath here, okay? This pattern didn't start with Muskrat Falls, and we all have hot feelings around that, so let's just leave that to one side for now, okay? I think we need to go back further in our history.
How about the Sprung Greenhouse? Tobin, I was waiting for that. The Sprung Greenhouse was an act of genius. It was the market that failed us. You laugh, Tobin. Aren't you forgetting about the Charter of Rights and Freedoms? Or the Atlantic Accord? I brought home the Atlantic Accord, an historic agreement which gave us rights to our offshore oil, and without which you, Premier Williams, would never have had the money to waste on Muskrat Falls. I renegotiated that accord, and unlike you, I left nothing on the table and got the best deal. I got us 100% revenue from the offshore, so we could become a half province.
Yeah? Out of my way, Tobin. And then you turned around, spent it all in a decade, cut personal income taxes by 25%, increased the size of the public by 30%, didn't put away anything as a buffer against a fall in oil prices, left us in another big fat pickle, you did.
All right, that's enough out of you. Your government gutted the Atlantic Accord, and I want to go on the record to register my utter contempt for your government's support of Bill C-49, which gave away all we fought for in '85. And because none of you bothered to read the report, you didn't even know that the seabed inside the 12-mile limit already belonged to Newfoundland and Labrador before you signed it away to the feds in May 2025 with no compensation. That may prove to be an even bigger disaster than Muskrat Falls. You guys wait. In time, the Lower Churchill will be seen for the act of genius it was.
I wonder, pretty lady, are these guys forgetting all about the hundreds of millions of dollars lost to fraud that my government had to deal with when we took office after nearly 23 years of dictatorship?
I don't know, Premier.
Please, call me Frank.
Okay, Frank?
Dictatorship? Fraud? After everything I did for this great nation? Dragging it into the 20th century with my bare hands? I am the father of Confederation. I brought us one, not two, but 3 pulp and paper mills. I opened up the unparalleled wealth of Labrador. I opened the mines to the great industrialists, ripe with the raw, red, rapacious desire for the iron ore of this great land. I dragged us kicking and screaming into the security and brotherhood of the Canadian Federation. Yeah! Might have left out a few things there, Joey.
Okay, premiers, please. The first step to healing is to admit that we have a problem. Can we do that? Can we just admit we have a problem?
What do you mean, healing?
We just have to be positive and not think about it.
Oh, Premier, come on. You know there is such a thing as toxic positivity, right? Denying we have a problem is not going to help us move forward.
There's no problem with you, little lady. No problem at all.
Okay,
That's some progress, maybe? You know what? I think it might help if we went back a little further in our history and acknowledged that perhaps this problem began long before any of you took office.
Yeah.
How about we start with the Commission of Government?
What's that?
Once upon a time, the great colony of Newfoundland was granted responsible government. And for the next 74 years, she saw many administrations come and go. Some of those administrations were notable for their corruption. But the most corrupt administration of all belonged to that of Sir Richard Squires. He was first elected in 1919 when he formed an alliance with the Fishermen's Protective Union under William Coker, when Squires agreed to adopt some of Coker's ideas to regulate the fishery. But when the price of fish fell, Squires found it convenient to blame Coker and abandon regulation of the fishery. And then, Squires' first term ended in a scandal when it was discovered that he had been falsifying council minutes to hide the fact that he'd been receiving secret payments out of the public purse. Squires resigned, he was arrested, and then released on bail. But that was not to be the end of Sir Richard Squires. Oh no, him being a thief did not prevent us from electing him for a second term in 1928. And by that time, we were again on the verge of crisis through the siphoning off of public assets into private hands, along with mounting public debt. A significant amount of which, it must be noted, was incurred in fighting the Great War on Britain's behalf, and on which Britain herself defaulted, though she would not allow us to default. The Brits insisted that we, the great colony of Newfoundland, must pay up. Never mind the fact that we had sacrificed a whole generation of young men on Britain's behalf. Then the Depression hit. Fish prices fell. Squires' second term ended in a riot which forced him from office. The existing political system here was deemed to be so seriously corrupt that it could not be corrected without drastic action, which would be needed to free the people from the malign influences which, developing over a prolonged period of time, had demoralized the people and warped their outlook.
It's not your fault, girl. I know Kathy made. I just don't know why I take it so seriously. It's like it's my own personal failing. Oh, God. You weren't even born then. I know. Here, let me help you. It's in here somewhere. Take this. Thank you, Kathy. Dry your eyes. Oh, God. What's wrong? I'm having a hot flash. Oh, yeah. You're the age. Been there, done that. Thank God that's over. Oh, I gotta blow my nose now. Take your time. Thanks, Kathy. Oh, no. What's wrong now? I think I messed up my lipstick. Well, take your time, girl. Fix yourself up. Okay. Thanks. You want some help? Yeah. Can you hold this for me? Yeah, sure. Just hold it up a little bit, please. Like that? Just a little bit closer. Like this? Yeah. Great. That's a nice color. You like that? Yeah. What color is it? Oh my goodness, I couldn't possibly read that without my glasses. Can you read it? Yeah. Measure thrice, cut once. Weird. Kathy? Yep. I've been meaning to ask you something. What's up? How did you manage? What do you mean?
guys, working your way up to finally take charge of the province in 2010 as the first woman premier in our history. They must have been breathing down your neck the whole time, just waiting for you to slip up. Well, I got my start in municipal politics, you know, on the Bureau, and I guess I got used to being the only woman in the room, and I had to grow a thick skin. Yeah, I know that you made your mark fighting against the closure of the Fisheries Product International plant in the 80s, and against all odds, you won. I sure did. That was a boss move. Which I guess helps explain how you were able to make the decision to sanction the Muskrat Falls project, in spite of the fact that there were a lot of good reasons not to do that. What? I mean, like when the Departments of Finance and Natural Resources prepared a document for you, one that recommended hiring an independent consultant to conduct a full review of the project. You know, one that would investigate Nalcor's analysis and due diligence because it was highly sus. You then did something calamitous. You rejected the document outright without even referring it to cabinet for a second opinion. And then you got your federal loan guarantee, and against all economic sense, the project was sanctioned. That's not fair! I couldn't have known how things would devolve after I left office. But you were the boss at the time of sanction, and you could have stopped it. Stopped it? That's kooky. Why didn't Dwight Ball stop it when the Liberals came to power in 2015? Don't forget, I was following in the wake of Danny Williams, the most popular premier in our history, and he staked his reputation on getting Muskrat Falls built. I worked under him for years as Natural Resources Minister in getting that project off the ground. Practically the whole province was behind it. Okay, I see your point there, Kathy, but surely the buck has to stop with someone, doesn't it? And that must be the premier of the province. That's not fair! I'm sorry, Kathy, but that whole series of legislative maneuvers to get the federal loan guarantee for that project. I'm talking about Bill 61, removal of the Public Utilities Board from oversight, the power purchase agreement. All of that stuff left us, the ratepayer, without any protection from rising power rates to pay for Muskrat Falls. And never mind what the Fury government told us about the Great Rate Mitigation Plan. That doesn't really solve the problem. All it does is delay the pain and spread out the cost increases over more time until 2030. And we don't know what happens after that. And the awful, uncomfortable truth is that it doesn't really matter to investors whether Muskrat Falls is a success or not, because of this whole diabolical genius of the process of financialization. They get paid anyway by us through our power rates. And that happened under your watch. This is outrageous! I can't be held responsible for all of this. Well, who is responsible? It's a whole lot bigger than me. I'm sorry, Kathy. You know, I actually really admired you. You did? Yeah. I went to the big Ovations Women's Conference you held in St. John's in 2013, and I heard you speak, and you know, it was wonderful and inspiring. I was swept up in it all and filled with hope for the future of the province. And that was a real and meaningful impact that you had on the province's women. Only, I want to have an honest reckoning, because I think it's really important that we understand how our culture has contributed to this repetition of problematic deals built on hype and magical thinking, so we can choose a better way. Okay, here we go. Here we go, Kathy. Please forgive me, folks, and let me get back on track here. So, we were talking about Commission of Government. So, in 1934, the British government appointed a commission to rule over us and make decisions on our behalf, removing our independence and replacing our, however troubled, democracy. offer ourselves some forgiveness for something that was completely out of the control of those of us here today, and yet still weighs heavily upon our collective psyche, whether we realize it or not. Oh, Father Clyde, not Father. I'm sorry. FC, this is going to be so much harder than I thought. You seem to be taking things personally. Yeah, I am. I do take it personally. Why do you think that is? I don't know, Father Clyde. I mean, FC, do you feel responsible in some way for the way the province manages its affairs? Yes, I guess I do. Oh, it's so stupid. Why is it stupid? Well, it's not my job, is it? I mean, I'm not in a leadership position. I don't write policy. I don't enact legislation. Well, why do you care so much then? Because I love this place, and I feel like citizens have this responsibility to participate, I guess. But I was hoping that you would be able to help me figure that out. So your love for this place makes you feel a sense of responsibility for what happens here. Yes, and I know it doesn't make any sense, but I feel like I ought to be able to influence what happens. You know, but I can't. And it's so frustrating because I see that we keep repeating the same mistakes over and over, expecting different results. Like with our tendency to want to go big, like with mega projects, I mean. And, you know, all the politicians have to do to manipulate us is to pick a fight with Ottawa or Quebec or talk about jobs, promise jobs, or talk about our rich resources. And, you know, maybe the public is sick of it. They hear what they want to hear, and they turn away from the rest, and they think, yes, good jobs here at home, so we can bring every mother's son home, like your campaign promised, Father Clyde. And you know, that's a great dream. That's a wonderful dream, Father Clyde. I mean, FC. But that is not what is actually going on with all these mega projects. And the GML has a tendency to gaslight anyone who does take a hard, critical look at what is going on. I mean, God, don't get me started on the big hydrogen boom. Like, did it ever really make sense for us to allow foreign corporations to lay waste to our natural spaces to create energy for Europe, not even for our own communities? Well, nobody's ever done it at the scale they're proposing, and the technology's advancing all the time. And what happens when the war ends? And Europe makes up with Russia, stops buying, and starts buying cheap Russian energy again, which some say is already happening. And, you know, the market's already decided it doesn't want expensive ammonia from Eastern Canada that has to be transported in diesel fuel ships across the Atlantic. And then when that idea died, they started talking about powered up data centers instead. Holy crow, did anyone stop to ask what all the data centers are for? I mean, do you think our AI overlords are going to care whether we're comfortable with being trapped in a digital panopticon prison with no such thing as privacy anymore? My God! We are so easily manipulated. Everybody loved Danny Williams. 95% of us at one point, and nobody wanted to listen to the few dissenting voices cautioning us against the deal with Muscat Falls. And it happens over and over again. So, you feel helpless. Yeah, I feel helpless. Well, that's a hard place to be. What do you think you could do about that? Me? Well, you can't really change something until you understand it, so I still have to get the premiers to agree on the problem before we can move forward. How will you do that? where he talks about our early history and our magical thinking when it comes to our resources. That sounds like a good start. Okay, thanks, FC. One thing before you go. Yes? What is it? Do not mention the linerboard mill. Do you mean the Stephenville Diamond Airport scandal? No, I mean the Stephenville linerboard mill. Okay, whatever you say, FC. Go in liberal peace, sunshine. Okay, you do know I'm nonpartisan, right, FC? Like, I don't subscribe to the whole party as religion thing. Oh, never mind. Premiers. Okay, I think you really need to hear this. Oh, come on. You know it's true that until we recognize our patterns, we can't change them, right? So there's this passage in the 1971 seminal book by Professor S.J.R. Noel that I found to be profoundly arresting, and that gives insight into both the change that Confederation brought to our culture and the essential ways in which it stayed the same. Okay, listen up, guys. Okay, he's talking about the province post-Confederation. In spite of the highest rate of unemployment and the lowest per capita income in Canada, economic conditions were so immeasurably better than they had ever been before Confederation that Newfoundlanders again eagerly embraced that curious, intoxicating myth that runs like a thread through their history, that their land, underneath its harsh and unproductive exterior, is really a shining El Dorado, awaiting only the right leader to unlock its treasures. Flights of fancy about the new province's vast economic potential, the alleged existence of which was used to justify the expenditure of public funds on a variety of highly dubious private development schemes, thus became the rhetorical stock in trade of the governing Liberal Party, whose leader excelled even Sir Richard Squires in his ability to tell the people what they loved to hear. Oh. The last part of that just kills me. And it hurts because it's true. We've rewarded leaders who tell us what we want to hear, not what we need to hear.
Poppycock.
Premier Smallwood, with respect, Churchill Falls is a prime example of that. You told us that atomic power was coming up fast and we had to get the Churchill Falls deal done as soon as possible before we missed our chance. And in July '67, when you plunged that silver shovel into the ground at Churchill Falls, you said, do you remember?
Of course I do. I said, this is our river. This is our waterfall. This is our land. We are developing it mainly, chiefly, principally, for the benefit of Newfoundland. Newfoundland first, Quebec second, the rest of the world last.
Right. Never mind the fact that it was actually happening in Labrador, without even letting the Innu know their ancestral lands were about to be flooded. And, let's just be honest here, Joey, by 1969, you had negotiated with 5 Quebec premiers and you were starting to feel the pinch. You knew it was a crappy deal, and you were willing to accept a crappy deal because you were personally losing share value. So you and your cronies set out to sell out the province and the Innu, whom you and Prime Minister Saint Laurent had left completely out of the terms of union with Canada. And the deal that Brinko ended up signing on our behalf robbed us of the economic riches we were promised because Quebec would only agree to allow us access to its transmission lines if we sold the power to Hydro-Quebec at the border. So in the end, that deal has yielded more than 30 billion for Hydro-Quebec and less than 3 billion for Newfoundland and Labrador. But to be fair, even though the Churchill Falls contract was a travesty, the Churchill Falls project came in on budget and ahead of schedule.
unlike the Muskrat Falls project, for which generations of the people of the province are on the hook. And then the Fury government told us we had to do it again with all the wind hydrogen projects, and we had to sign the new Churchill Falls MOU. So let's go big. Let's jump into these projects right away without looking too closely at the details or considering the long-term consequences. I mean, doesn't that sound familiar?
Hey, no. Not fair. We put together a transformational deal that was going to save the province.
Yes, I understand that you believe you have, Premier, but please just wait your turn because I'm talking to Joey right now.
Don't you want to take my photo?
No, not right now. We're having an adult discussion.
I don't know who she thinks she is. Oh, she invited me here. All she's done is abuse me. I haven't got anything to show for my socials yet.
This is all nonsense. You're forgetting that without me, there would have been no confederation with Canada.
Premier Smallwood, with respect, Professor Noel was talking about your developer parish policies and your belief in all kinds of fanciful schemes that would rescue us from dependence on the fishery and bring us wealth. Instead of focusing on the fishery, the very reason why our ancestors settled here in the first place, you focused on bringing a whole host of German magnates to our shores to open factories with government money, what you called your welcome ring, right?
Yes.
Spending money to make money, that's right. Laundering money to make money, what? Stealing land to make money, what? And you know this is a pattern we've repeated, right? Well, I searched every corner of the globe for ways to accelerate the growth of Newfoundland, and I did it for the betterment of Newfoundlanders, not for myself. Yes, I understand, Joey. You dragged us into the modern era, and a lot of good came out of Confederation, that's right. We got the Canadian welfare programs, and many people here enjoyed some financial security for the first time in their lives. But we also lost something of real value, and that was our own ability as a rural people to build and create and innovate, qualities that had been engendered in us out of necessity through centuries of living on this formidable island in the middle of the North Atlantic. But you repudiated that local knowledge, and you replaced it with the idea that foreign expertise was better and necessary. And through your politics of patronage, you helped to further subvert a people who had been politically conditioned to look to government for help, to become completely addicted to handouts, and to look to government and to you for help as a paternal savior instead of to ourselves and our own communities to solve our own problems.
Balderdash! Blasphemy! Poppycock!
You've told the people to burn their boats, and under your watch, we stopped innovating in fisheries when other countries didn't, and have suffered for that in the long run. I mean, we had the greatest resource of cod in the world, that meaty, nutritious, delicious delicacy that we should have brought to market as the high grade it was. And that neglect was apparent with it being placed under federal jurisdiction, under Term 22 of the Terms of Union with Canada. And that has severely restricted our ability to manage our fisheries. And that, along with your resettlement schemes, beginning in the 50s, has caused waves of out-migration to Western Canadian provinces and the decimation of our coastal rural communities. And then there's your wildly pathological choices of advisors and mentors who wreaked havoc on the province as scheme after scheme failed to materialize the wealth and permanent jobs they were meant to, and actually facilitated the shifting of wealth out of public into private hands. I mean, you idolize Sir Richard Squires! Your gullibility, your propensity for living in a fantasy of your own creation and being taken in by all manner of huckster is legendary, Joey, and I haven't even mentioned Vlad Nanis, or John Shaheen, or John C. Doyle, and the whole Stephenville linerboard mill fiasco, into which your government sunk hundreds of millions, and Doyle manipulated stocks to reroute the profits back to his own companies instead of to the government. I mean, holy crap! This is still known as the greatest white-collar criminal event of the province's history, Joey! Joey? Joey? Did you mention the liner board mill? I completely lost control of myself. Was it because you were taking things personally? Yeah, definitely. I still don't understand why, I see, but I take full responsibility for my bad behavior, and I'm committed to doing the work on myself. What was it in particular that triggered you? I think it was my confusion over Premier Smollett's legacy. He enabled a lot of great things to happen here, but at the same time, he sold us out over and over. He was a difficult person to deal with, to say the least. And he changed, didn't he? He became everything he once fought against. He did love this place. Yes, but it's how he loved it that needs to be understood, because sometimes folks have this dysfunctional way of expressing what they think is love, but it's something more like unhealthy attachment or control. So what about your love for the premiers? What kind of love is that? Patronage had been entrenched in our political history long before Joey ever came along. But under his administration, it evolved into a kind of art form, unobvious and unabashed form of paternalism. Communities loyal to Joey were favored with grants and funding, jobs and public infrastructure works. Those who dared to vote conservative were punished. This tradition was followed by later administrations, and it had the effect of discouraging regional governance. Various communities were at odds and in competition with one another according to which way they voted and who was in power. The hyper-focus on jobs and individual projects, rather than on a broad, overarching long-term development strategy, helped to perpetuate the boom and bust cycle and to undermine the sustainability of communities. Joey reigned for nearly 23 years, and he didn't relinquish power easily. When the Progressive Conservative Party, under Premier Frank Morse, finally took power, after a long and drawn-out struggle in '72, Joey remained a powerful force in provincial politics, though his reign as premier was finally at an end. Frank Morse was born into a wealthy, fish plant-owning, merchant-class family in Carbonear. He went to private school in St. Andrews, along with the sons of the Crosbys. He married young,
At a time when you thought you had to marry to get a piece of tail. Premier! I thought I told you to call me Frank.
That's right, you did. I understand they used to call you Frankie Baby, because your prowess with women was as legendary as Frank Sinatra's.
That's what they say. You just can't stop thinking about me, can you?
Unfortunately, that's true, and it's a big part of the reason why I've invited you all here this evening, because I'd really like to get to the bottom of it.
Well then, pretty lady, we have something in common, because I'd like to get to the bottom of you. You know I've always loved women with freckles.
Oh, come on. I read that you weren't that fussy, and that pretty much any woman would do in a pinch.
It's true. They're all special in their own way.
Okay. Hands off, please, Frank. Frank, would you mind looking up here, please? No, up here at my eyes? Thank you. I thought that we could talk about your legacy for a bit. So, many have praised you for doing what people thought to be impossible at the time, and that was ending the long liberal reign of Joey Smallwood and ushering in a new era of openness and promise. I'm not sure what's happening here, but I'll just try and go along with it.
That's right, baby. You come along with me and let Frankie do the thinking.
You started out by paying more attention to fisheries, which had been largely neglected under Joey, and then you pushed for rural development and for the development of our natural resources.
That's right, baby.
But in 1977, when Canada asserted its rights to the 200-mile limit off the Grand Banks, instead of allowing cod stocks to rebuild, both Ottawa and St. John's went all in on increasing quotas. And you guys replaced the foreigners who've been doing the overfishing, with Canadians and Newfoundlanders doing the same and even worse.
Hey now, we were taking back our rights to our own resources.
The right to take as much as you want today and leave nothing for tomorrow, you mean?
Come on now.
Frank, your government was plagued throughout by scandals of one kind or another.
I don't remember anything about any scandals.
Oh, no?
No, I do remember the first thing I did after being sworn in as premier.
Oh? What was that?
I found the secret intercom system Joey had installed at his office to spy on his ministers.
Oh my, wow! Joey wasn't very kind about you, was he?
Why? What did he say?
Apparently he called you a good time stud. And a whoring womanizer. And he claimed that you had 4 testicles the size of grapefruits, and that your cerebral hemispheres hung between your legs, and that there was more intelligence in those heads than in the ones on your shoulders, and that you took your orders from the heads below.
It's all true.
What about how you took your girlfriend on all those campaign trips, flying by helicopter into coastal communities, while your wife stayed at home in St. John's with the kids?
What about it? You seem to be fixated on my relationships with women.
No. In fact, I'm far more interested in your fisheries policies and how you gave up the fisheries portfolio soon after going into office. I mean, your critics said that you couldn't say no, and that you gave away fisheries licenses like they were going out of style, and that kind of policy, along with federal mismanagement, helped to usher in the collapse of the northern cod fishery.
You can't seriously be suggesting that I'm responsible for something that happened more than a decade after I left office. Haven't you got anything nice to say?
You did a great job defending the seal hunt.
That's right, I did.
That 1977 campaign you led to New York Paris and London was kind of legendary, and you stood up for the sealers in the face of screaming protesters in all those great cities.
I could stand up for you too if you'd let me.
Oh, come on, man. There were a lot of hard scandals for you during your time in office.
Oh no, here she goes again.
Like the closing of the liner board mill. Scandalous Auditor General reports about your government awarding contract without tender. Questions around your huge amounts of personal prime real estate holdings. And then there was the whole come-by-chance refinery opening.
What? What about it?
Well, you got into power in part by your heavy criticisms of Joey's giveaways to John Shaheen and the come-by-chance refinery. But then when you came into power, you became close to Shaheen. And you even accepted a berth aboard the giant Huey 2 cruise ship that he chartered to take an elite crowd from all over the world, from New York to come-by-chance and back again. And the party you had before hoving off was an epic one that was described as a giant orgy of gluttony and inebriation.
So, I like to party. What's wrong with that?
The refinery closed 3 years later and became the biggest bankruptcy in Canadian history at the time. Frank, your government was renowned for boozing, and apparently it was obvious that when some of your members arose in the House of Assembly, they were heavily under the influence.
My member is rising right now.
Oh, I haven't even gotten to the scandal involving the fire in the Elizabeth Towers that one of your ministers was said to have set to destroy incriminating documents having to do with corruption around breaching of the Public Tender Act.
Just shut up and kiss me. Who's your favorite?
What?
Who's your favorite premier? It's me, isn't it?
Not really.
Come on, say it. Tell me I'm your favorite premier.
You're my...
Say it, baby. Say it for Daddy.
Daddy? What?
Whoa! You kicked me! My daddy, he treated so well.
Oh my God. What is it, my child? What just happened out there with Premier Frank Morris? That was, I don't even know how to describe it.
He came on to you.
Yeah, big time. But the disturbing thing is, I let him get away with way too much in front of everybody, and I'm so embarrassed.
Why do you think you were so susceptible?
Well, he's very charming, you know, and funny, and he has this almost like magnetic power. He wanted me to tell him he was my favorite premier, and then to call him Daddy. And for a minute, I was about to do it.
Is he your favorite premier?
No, definitely not.
Is it power, then, that you find attractive?
What? No. I'm not attracted to them in that way. Most of those guys are old enough to be my dad.
So, it's a father you're looking for, then?
Well, I just think they ought to be able to take care of the province by putting the interests of the people and the land and the water first, and by making the best decisions for the long term, not what's popular in the short term.
So, like the ideal father for family?
I suppose so.
So you do perceive the premier as a kind of father, then?
What's with all the invasive questions, Father Clyde? It's important that you sit with these uncomfortable questions.
They have something important to tell you about yourself.
Look, I don't have time to talk about this right now, okay? I've got an audience out there, and the premiers are not going to hang around all night, so I have to keep this thing moving, please. What do I do next?
Well, Peckford would be the obvious next step.
Peckford. Oh, I love Peckford.
Is he your favorite premier?
What?
just when we're getting somewhere.
Oh dear, Premier Fury, did you fall asleep?
What the hell was that? You're playing favorites here.
I am not, Danny. I don't have a favorite.
Well, why'd you let that Barry White wannabe go on for far too long and take advantage of you when we could have been talking about my accomplishments?
Okay, Danny. I do concede that did get out of hand, but I'm not going to take responsibility for his bad behavior, okay?
Look, I don't know you, and I don't know what you got going on, but clearly you've got some issues. But I got somewhere to be, so how about we just talk about me and call it a night?
Please just wait your turn, Danny, because Premier Peckford is next.
Peckford! Huh. What the hell did he do but throw away taxpayer money to an overblown cucumber project?
Aren't you forgetting about the Atlantic Accord?
Huh. I took that accord and I steel-maned it, and I got us 100% of revenue from the offshore, so we could become a half province.
Yes, and then you turned around and spent it all in a decade.
What about all my investments in infrastructure, and my poverty reduction strategy, and my investments in hospitals, not to mention doubling the budget of the Newfoundland Arts Council?
Yes, but don't forget, it was the Peckford government who established the Arts Council in the first place.
Yeah, well, ArtsNL has gone downhill since I left office anyway, which is made obvious by the fact that it has supported you.
Do you mean my factual Muskrat Falls show, Danny?
Yeah, that's the one. That piece of naysaying, bottom-feeding, misinformation spreading crap.
Okay, thanks for that, Danny. Because if people didn't know about it before, they do now, folks. It's called
Muskrat Dreams a Love Story, and you can go right to my YouTube channel if you want to check that out and learn all about the colossal boondoggle led by this guy that's brought us to the brink of bankruptcy yet again.
Don't waste your time. It's all lies.
Lies, huh? Lies! I don't even know you crossed the line. Okay, now see what happens here, you bad little dreamers.
Wait their turn to speak.
Oh, it's not tight enough, is it, Danny? Don't worry, I've got another one over here.
Do you know that this is the flag that the Peckford government introduced? And I'm so glad it's here to offer you a little comfort. So you just lie right over there like a good little premier and don't wake up Joey.
Premier Brian Peckford, the youngest premier in our history.
All I ever wanted was for proper resource management, for the sun to shine and have not to be. For a moment it did, yeah, and then they had to go blow it off. I see you're still smoking cigars. A habit I picked up in the late 80s. Yes, I read that things seemed to go a bit sideways for you in the late 80s, and that's when the cigar smoking started, along with what Rex Murphy called outlandish behavior. Chain and bracelet wearing and trips to the Cayman Islands. What was going on there?
Rex Murphy should try dealing with the townies for a few years and see how he copes.
Yeah, I can only imagine the pressure. You weren't quite the activist, weren't you?
Well, if you mean taking a different approach than Moore's, then yes. I took a position against the practice of political patronage, and that was considered to be radical in those days. Though nowadays, I see see they're at it again.
Huh? What's that supposed to mean?
Are you feeling guilty about something?
Are you talking about me?
Come on. There are intergenerational relationships between your family and a certain proponent on a giant wind, hydrogen, data center, power grid, whatever the hell project it is on the west coast of Newfoundland. And if everything was above board, why didn't you just show your receipts for your trip to John Risley's fishing lodge right away and be done with it?
My time, my done. How many times do I have to say it?
Please just stop saying it, Premier, because it's not helping.
You invited me here for, unlike innocent abuse.
Premier Peckford, you appointed the first female cabinet ministers in our history and established the first Department of Environment. Those women were perfectly qualified for the positions, and the Department of Environment was part of my plan to help us fight for proper resource management. Right. How do you think you did with that? Well, I wanted most for the people of the province to benefit from the development of their natural resources. Damn it, I had to fight Ottawa every inch of the way. Yeah, you did. Like, if you take offshore oil, for instance, like Hibernia, you fought for that project and you had a long battle with the first Trudeau to try and get a share of control for the province, right? And it wasn't until long after you left office that it began paying revenue. That's right. And do you know what argument the feds used to try and keep the revenues from our oil to themselves? No? What was it? This came right out of Cretchen's mouth as energy minister. We wouldn't want to overheat the Newfoundland economy. Imagine. We had almost 18% unemployment, and the feds were worried about what would happen if Newfoundland had some new revenue from its own resource. That's what I was up against. Holy crap. Yes, sir. I argued that under Term 37 of the Terms of Union with Canada, all lands, mines, minerals, and royalties belonging to Newfoundland at the time of Confederation shall belong to the province. And I tried to take Trudeau to the Newfoundland Supreme Court of Appeal over it, but he got the whole matter referred to the Supreme Court of Canada, and the feds won the case. Damn them. Yes. Didn't you wear a black armband when that happened? I declared a day of mourning in the province, and we all wore black armbands. And do you know who represented the feds in court? Yes, I think I do know. Well, I wasn't about to be outfoxed again by the feds, so when Mulrooney was down here campaigning, I got him to sign an agreement in writing which guaranteed us an equal voice in management of the offshore and made us the principal beneficiary of the resource. Right, and then in '85, you negotiated the original Atlantic Accord with the Mulrooney government, that's right. But then the price of oil fell, didn't it? Yeah, from over $35 a barrel in 1980 to less than $10 a barrel in '86. Right, and then when the price of oil began to rise again, 88 cents of every dollar was clawed back by Ottawa because we weren't protected by the equalization formula any longer, and that's what Danny went to war over in the early 2000s. Be quiet, Danny! Doesn't it seem to you, Premier, that we keep fighting the same battles over and over? I don't know, Premier, but it seems to me that you really fought for the people to have the benefit of our natural resources while maintaining our traditional lifestyles. Like, if you take the forestry industry, for instance, you renegotiated leases with companies to give them shorter terms, require them to pay more for power, and to plant trees. You tried to reopen the Churchill Falls contract and to stop overfishing and to gain control of our fisheries. You even called for a cod moratorium in 1981. You didn't win those battles, but nobody's won them since. Nobody fought for fisheries like I did. Well, it's true you did make quite the splash with the Great Turbot War of 1995, Premier Tobin, but please just wait your turn. Why haven't you asked him about the Sprung greenhouse fiasco?
Yeah, I'd like to know about that too. I'm sure the people would prefer to hear about that than you questioning me on my record.
Yeah, I want to know too.
Okay, please, just give me a chance. I'm sorry, Premier Peckford, but I do have to ask about the Sprung Greenhouse project. Now, I must admit some sympathetic bias here, okay? Because I'm very concerned about food security. I mean, we do live on an island in the middle of the North Atlantic, so I can understand what the rationale was for that project, but going all in on cucumbers? What was that about?
Look, I'm going to explain this once, and that's it. Okay, great. So, in 1986, Memorial University did a Royal Commission on Employment and Unemployment. And in the report, they suggested that the province focus on small-scale developments for the local market. And agriculture was one of the areas they pinpointed for development.
Okay, that sounds like a totally sensible recommendation.
Right, so, in '87, we did a deal with the Sprungs of Calgary to build a greenhouse in Mount Pearl.
Okay, so not small and not local. How much did the Sprungs invest?
I believe it was about $4 million.
And how much did the province invest?
Yeah, tell her. How lopsided was that deal, Peckford? Please just wait your turn.
How much did the province invest, Premier?
$11 million.
11 million. Okay. And so why didn't your government hire local agricultural experts instead of the Sprungs of Calgary?
Because the local agricultural experts were totally against the whole project.
Yeah. Didn't one of them set his briefcase on fire in front of the media when he resigned?
He may have.
A cucumber from the Sprung greenhouse cost $1 to grow and sold for less than 50 cents in grocery stores.
Every damn month, we had to fork over more money to keep the place afloat.
Yes, and then in 1988, the roof turned brown, the whole crop died, and then in '89, the agriculture minister resigned, calling it a financial fiasco, and shortly after, the whole project went under and it cost the taxpayer $20 billion. Don't remind me. With respect, Premier Peckford, I think it's really important that we are reminded. Now, to be fair, I think the concept of growing food was a good one, but the choice of partner was not. Nor was the idea to go big right away instead of starting a small-scale trial, developing the market, expanding incrementally as it made economic sense. I see the pattern. Handouts to corporate players on massive projects that the government has to continually prop up on borrowed funds that benefit a select few through fat contracts and jobs, while the rest of the province is on the hook. And the GNL has sold that to the people who largely just want to believe what they're told. And without a healthy local media ecosystem and more transparency in governance, it's kind of hard for people to know exactly what's going on. And to be fair to you, Premier Peckford, Sprung Greenhouse was only $20 million. The Liner Board Mill was $200 million. Muskrat Falls is nearly $14 billion. And then the Fury government wanted to do it again with all the wind hydrogen projects and the big Churchill Falls MOU.
Disinformation! Wind energy companies are paying for it themselves. There are no subsidies.
But federal tax incentives are subsidies, Premier.
They are?
Yeah. Use of our land, our water, our energy grid, our wilderness areas, those are all subsidies.
Well, we settled a fiscal framework for that.
Oh, give me a break. Corporations don't pay a cent until they pay their money back, until they earn their money back, and even then, it's only a pittance.
It's people like you and your negative attitudes that keep us down.
No, Premier, no. We need some serious changes. We need conflict of interest laws so that politicians can't leave office to immediately join the boards of major corporations that want to do business with the government. I mean, we need to ban corporate and union donations, like in the rest of Canada. I mean, you are meant to serve our interests, not the interests of your powerful friends and their corporations. Not by giving the public a simplified story of what's happening for their own good because we need to be treated like children, while corporate players are given insider knowledge for how to get around legislation to get what they want.
What do you want from me?
I want to be treated like an adult, okay? The GNL's not my daddy. The GNL is not my daddy. I want you to get
spending and borrowing under control. I want you to stop jumping into mega projects. Get spending, borrowing under control so I don't have to worry about what happens the next time the price of oil falls and you can't sell our bonds on the international money markets and the province goes bankrupt. We have teetered on the edge of bankruptcy so many times throughout our history that we've come to think of living in crisis as normal, and it doesn't have to be this way.
Well, we tried to turn that around with wind and hydrogen, with the new Churchill Falls deal, and we had a once-in-a-lifetime chance to get this done and turn Newfoundland and Labrador into the clean, green energy warehouse the world needs to fight climate change. But you guys voted in the PCs.
Oh, for crying out loud! I could get behind a couple wind hydrogen projects if they were meant to benefit us directly. Even if they were about helping to get Nova Scotia off of coal, I could be supportive if they weren't being used as a subsidy harvesting land grab and as an excuse to pour more public money into Nel4/NL Hydro. And don't get me started on the magical thinking required to support the whole concept of using intermittent wind to create hydrogen to be turned into ammonia to be shipped across the Atlantic on diesel-fueled ships. And then they started talking about powering up data centers instead. I mean, what do you think our AI overlords are going to do when they use our resources to build a surveillance grid? Do you think it will rule us with justice? I mean, what are we even talking about here? Does anybody know?
Doesn't anyone want to take my photo?
Okay. This is going to sound pathetic and naive. Well, it's just you and I here. So what's the harm in saying? Okay. I think that in coming here tonight, I had this hope that one of the premiers would be able to offer me some understanding of the past and some instruction, I guess, on how we move forward without repeating the mistakes of the past. But oh God, you were right. What was I right about? The father thing. It's embarrassing, but I think subconsciously I was hoping for one of the premiers to say to me, "It's all right, Tara. There's nothing for you to worry about. We will take care of everything." That does sound like something a father would say. I know. It's like something I imagine my dad would have said to me if he had lived, only those guys aren't my dad. They aren't going to save me, and they aren't going to save the province, and I'm worried about what will happen to us. Maybe saving is too much to expect. Yeah, I see now that it is. They don't have the answer. If they did, we wouldn't be staring down the deepest hole of debt we've ever been in only a decade and a half after we were partying with our oil riches and celebrating being a half province. I mean, the fact is, nobody's coming to save us. Not Ottawa, not Daddy. We will have to save ourselves. Can you remember when this regard for the premier as a kind of father began? Oh, I think so. I was in my late teens, and it was during the Meech Lake Accord talks in 1990. Do you remember? How could I forget? You were incredible. It made you famous across the whole country. What was it in particular that struck you? It was the principled way that you stood for Newfoundland against so much powerful opposition, and how you were able to articulate the issue. I loved how smart you came across on national television. I mean, you were the opposite of every dumb, newbie joke ever told.
remember that you talked about what a true federal system like Canada should be, and that it was the best protection for a small province like ours. And you warned that the distinct society clause for Quebec in the Charter.
I was never against the idea of Quebec being a distinct society.
No, I know. It was more that you didn't think that one province should be able to impose constitutional change on the others. And even though you were bullied and berated by the feds and the big provinces, you didn't cave. It was brilliant.
Well, I can see this impacted you. Why do you think that is?
Because it was the way a father should defend his children. Because my own father was gone, I think that you reminded me of him. How he could have been, maybe. And so I looked up to you. And then, when you made all those cuts to public sector jobs and rolled back collective agreements with the unions, it was brutal. But I thought I understood why you had to do it. And it was because you were faced with some of the worst economic times the province had ever been. We were on the verge of bankruptcy again, and you had to get us back on track fiscally. And then the Clyde Lie protest started. And one day I was driving my mom's car past Sir Richard Squire's building in Cornerbrook, and I saw you being chased by a huge crowd of protesters. And they were screaming at you, shaking their signs in your face, and you walked through the crowd, you got to your car, and you drove away. Well, I was so upset that that was happening to you, and so I turned my mom's car around in the middle of Mount Bernard, and I got barked at, but I didn't care, and I followed it to the Colonial Inn. And when I got inside, there were a bunch of men in suits in the lobby, and I asked one of them, where you'd gone? He said you'd gone upstairs, so I wrote a note on a napkin, and I asked the man to give it to you, and I left. A couple of months later, I get this official letter in the mail from you. Not from your assistant, but from you, the premier. And you begged me. And you expressed empathy for the protesters because they were concerned about their living. And you said you thought it was crucial that the province be put on a sound financial footing, and that meant having to make hard, unpopular decisions. And you said you thought that demonstrations must be an acceptable part of our democracy, but that we just shouldn't allow ourselves to be overwhelmed by such tactics. Well, isn't that something? Yeah, it was such a great response. Only what? Only it's all starting to make sense to me now. What is? I think you're the father I needed when I needed you. But it's time for me to let that go. And to look to myself and my own community to solve my own problems. And to my faith to help me make sense of the world. Well, I see our work here is nearly done. Not quite. I still have to go back out there. But what about the new premier? Did you invite him? Premier Wakeup? Yeah, I did. And? Did he come? No. He said that he was far too busy trying to clean up the mess that the Liberals left. And he offered to send Steve Outhouse in his place. But I said, no thank you, I declined to use the outhouse. So, what's next? Well, I haven't spoken with Premier Tobin yet. Captain Canada. Yeah. Here I go then. Here you go. Well, folks, it's just about time
to wind things down here this evening, but before I do, it would be remiss if I didn't speak to you, Premier Tobin, about your attempts to end overfishing off the nose and tail of the Grand Banks. That was while I was Minister of Fisheries under Kretchen.
Yes, before you became premier. Can you tell us about that, please?
Sure. Well, foreign fishing fleets were ravaging the stocks just off the 200-mile limit for decades, and nobody in the federal government had the guts to do anything about it.
But you did, though, through your Coastal Fisheries Protection Act, which was meant to enforce the rules regarding stocks that straddled the 200-mile limit. And then you actually started enforcing the rules.
I did. Imagine, the EU and the UK went off their heads. They argued that it was international waters, and the countries doing the overfishing should be the ones to investigate their own ships.
That is so crazy. Okay, keep going, please.
Well, in the spring of '95, the Great Turbot War was set off by a Spanish trawler named the Estay that had been overfishing off the nose and tail of the Grand Banks. I ordered the vessel to be arrested and brought into port in St. John's.
But she took off, didn't she?
You bet she did. Our boys chased her down and threatened to fire across the bow if she wouldn't stop and allow our officers to board.
Wow! A high seas chase! What did they find when they went aboard?
They found 2 sets of books. One fake set for the regulatory authorities, which showed numbers under the limit, and the other real set, which showed the high degree to which they'd been overfishing. And they found a fake bulkhead in the ship, behind which was stowed tons and tons of undersized turbot.
Oh, the fiends! Now, tell us about the net. Can you tell us about that?
The net, which was massive, about 20 feet high, wider than a football field, had an illegal lining, which meant that nothing could escape from it.
OMG, this makes me so mad. Now, can you tell us about your legendary press stunt, please?
Well, I had arranged to have the net displayed in front of the UN in New York, which was having a big meeting that day, and Premier Wells joined me for the press conference.
Oh, do the turbot speech for us, please.
Yeah, Toby, do the turbot speech.
Yeah, I want to hear the turbot speech too.
I wish you'd stop knocking me in the head, baby.
Pay no attention. Please, do the turbot speech.
Well, I held up a little turbot to the cameras and I said, "We are down to the last lonely, unloved, unattractive little turbot clinging by its fingernails to the Grand Banks of Newfoundland, saying, 'Someone reach out to save me in this 11th hour as I'm about to go down to extinction.'" Oh,
And it became the lead story in all of North America.
Europe too.
Your actions started an international dialogue around fishing practices in international waters, and for a brief period changed the image of Canada into a country that was willing to stand up for itself.
Yeah! But then, the charges were stayed, and the Canadian government had to pay the owners of the Estay hundreds of thousands of dollars for lost expenses and income. Well, that wasn't my fault.
No, I know it wasn't, Premier, but the thing is, blaming the foreigners for overfishing was a bit rich, wasn't it?
What? They were overfishing.
Yes, I know, but truly so were we. And instead of take responsibility for that, you did what we've always done, which is to blame the foreign devil, rather than take responsibility ourselves to do the hard work to make difficult change.
What?
Well, the fact is that in 1977, when Canada asserted its rights to the 200-mile limit, instead of allowing cod stocks to rebuild, both Ottawa and St. John's poured money into increasing the size of the fishing fleet, into massive draggers and otter trawlers that plowed the Grand Banks and did as much, if not more damage to the stocks than the foreigners had been doing. And the inshore Newfoundland and Labrador fishermen, who had been warning about a collapse since the early 80s, were ignored by government and by DFO scientists in favor of a political imperative to keep increasing quotas and deny
government. Well, that was before my time.
I know. You did good work, but you continued the pattern, don't you see?
I
I do have some sympathy. I mean, the pressure to give everybody some of what they want must be intense, but the fact is that nobody in a position of power had the courage to stop before we decimated the richest fishing grounds the world had ever known. And if we had only respected and nurtured and cherished that gift, we could have it in abundance. Today, tomorrow, and forevermore.
That is so naive, but it's true. I thought I'd been invited here to talk about my time as premier, not to be blamed for the collapse of the cod stocks.
I'm not blaming you in particular, Premier Tobin. You're just a part of the pattern.
Ah, jeez.
You know, you did accomplish a lot of good things during your short time in office.
I did? Yeah? Okay, like what?
Where do I begin? You instituted policies to grow the shellfish fishery, which helped to offset some of the losses from the cod moratorium. You signed a deal to get the Terra Nova oil platform going. You spearheaded a bunch of historical events and supported the creation of the Brooms and the Newfoundland Film Development Corporation to help grow the province's film industry. You passed the NL Human Rights Act to end discrimination based on sexual orientation. And you completed what the Wells government had started. You ended the denominational school system. That's right, I did.
You may have left out a few things.
Well, what I don't understand is that after all that, you suddenly quit in 2000 to accept a position in Jean Chrétien's government, and you abandoned us.
It was hardly abandonment.
Well, even with a good successor like Roger Grimes, it opened the door to Danny Williams and Muskrat Falls. Danny!
Oh my goodness! I'm coming, Danny! Hang on! I'll save you! Oh my God! You dare to muzzle that Danny? Lady, you'll be hearing from my lawyers. I didn't sign up for this.
Well, me and my sons didn't sign up to pay for Muskrat Falls forever either, Danny. How does it feel to have bad decisions made on your behalf that you can't change?
Who the hell are you to lecture me? Who are you working for anyway?
I'm not working for anyone. I'm just a citizen trying to gain some clarity on our situation and how we move forward.
Well, why do you keep disappearing behind that curtain, huh? Who you got behind there? You know,
I have noticed a significant omission amongst your guests this evening.
You know, I'd like to know who she's got behind that curtain.
yeah, me too! I think I know who's behind that curtain. It's Grimes, isn't it?
No.
How about Tom Marshall?
No, it's not.
Beaton Tulk? No, God no. I know who it is. It's Wakeham, isn't it?
No, it's not Wakeham.
Yes, it is. That big, gorgeous, freckle-faced, giant, googly-eyed gorilla. I can smell it. Let's get him. Yeah, let's get him. Yeah. Okay, just cool it, you guys.
I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, this event has gone completely off the rails and it's not at all what I had intended for this evening. I was hoping that we could come to some kind of consensus here, okay, on how to, move forward without repeating the mistakes of the past, but I see that I was naive in looking to these premier daddies for the answers.
Yeah, good luck trying to find some consensus with these guys. You hypocrite. You want some kind of confession from us, but you won't tell us who you got behind that curtain? Ha!
Okay, Danny, you want to know who's behind the curtain? I'll show you. Come on.
What? There's nobody here.
Sure there is, Danny. There's you, there's me, but we're not the only ones. Let me show you. There's the forests, the land, the water, the fish, the creatures of the sea and sky. And those are all living ecosystems that have supported our existence. And they're not just things to be exploited and financialized. There are the ghosts of the original people. There are the ghosts of our European ancestors. And there are all of the new immigrants who've come from across the world to make this place their home. And there are our children and grandchildren and those who will follow. Only, what will we be leaving for them?
Well, we'll be leaving them all the energy they could ever need. All the energy the world needs.
Oh, how much do we need then?
More! More, 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 more!
Well, there will never be enough.
Exactly! That's why we must keep building mega projects! Oh, come on, man!
Danny. Pardon me, Toby. Danny, don't you think before we go jumping into another mega project, we should deal with our debt situation?
What?
Danny, did you know that the Newfoundland and Labrador government has to borrow 25% of what it spends every year, and that now the interest payment on the debt alone is our third biggest expense?
Well, you gotta spend money to make money.
Oh, come on, man. This is not sustainable. You know, we're a small province, and we have to do better with what we already have. We have to get our own house in order before somebody else forces us to. We have to build up our health and resilience on both individual and community levels, and work toward becoming as independent and as strong as possible. Whatever happened to becoming a half province? When did that dream die?
What the hell kind of granola hippy dippy woke claptrap is she getting?
Maybe you'll never understand, Danny. Maybe none of you will. I see that now. I see that we've been conditioned to look to you, Premier Daddies, for the answers, rather than take responsibility for ourselves. So, here you go, Toby. Thank you, Premiers. Thank you for your presence here tonight. Thank you for your service to the province, and thank you for inadvertently teaching us what we need to learn.
That was great.